There is a man sitting very still while someone cuts into his skull. He is not screaming, he is not struggling, he is not even particularly afraid. He simply sits there, head tilted back, body relaxed, surrendering himself entirely to a pair of hands he has decided to trust. And the longer you look at this painting, the stranger that stillness becomes. Because something is wrong here. Something is wrong with almost everything here. The man performing the surgery wears an inverted funnel on his head. A nun stands nearby, holding a book she is not reading. Strange hybrid creatures wander through the background as though they belong there. A giant human head has somehow become part of the landscape itself, with people resting on top of it and others struggling inside a large barrel of dark liquid beside it. And somewhere behind all of this, almost politely, buildings are burning. Nobody has turned to look. This painting was made around the end of the 15th century by Hieronymus Bosch, a man who spent his entire life studying one subject with the patience of a scientist and the amusement of someone who has already seen the punchline. Not demons, not hell, not the end of the world. Human beings. More precisely, human beings arranging their own deception with great sincerity and no awareness whatsoever. On the surface, this painting depicts something that was a real medieval belief. People at the time genuinely believed that foolishness and insanity were caused by a physical stone lodged inside the skull. Traveling surgeons, most of them fraudulent, claimed they could remove it. There was apparently no shortage of patients. That is the surface story, and Bosch is not really interested in it. He is interested in the older, stranger, more permanent story underneath. The one that does not belong to the 15th century. The one that does not belong to any century in particular. The one about what happens when a person becomes desperate enough to let someone else reach inside their head. Now look again at the man in the chair. His name, in the Dutch tradition Bosch was drawing from, is Lubbert Das, a figure from folklore, a stock character representing a certain kind of ordinary gullibility, but Bosch does not paint him as a joke. He paints him as a person. His body is heavy and real. His posture is not ridiculous, it is recognizable. The way he has settled into that chair, given his weight over to it, tilted his head back and opened himself completely to whatever is about to happen. That posture has a name. It is called hope. And that is the first thing in this painting that should make you uncomfortable. Because Lubbert Das is not here because he is stupid. He is here because he is wounded. Because there is something inside him he cannot bear anymore, and someone told him it could be taken out, and he wanted that to be true badly enough to sit down. Bosch understood this without any sentimentality. The wound comes first, the charlatan comes second. The wound is what makes the chair possible, and the chair is what makes everything else possible. Now look at the surgeon's hat. It is a funnel turned upside down, a vessel designed for pouring, worn inverted, so it collects nothing and pours nothing. A tool of knowledge, rendered useless and worn as a crown. Bosch did not paint accidents. That funnel is a verdict. But notice where Bosch places it in the composition. It is not the center of the image. It is not the thing he asks you to look at first. The funnel is a secondary detail, powerful, precise, devastating, but it only lands after you have already watched Lubbert Das sit down, because the surgeon's costume is not actually the point. The point is that Lubbert Das never looked at it. He came here with a need, and when a person arrives carrying a need that large, they do not examine the credentials of whoever promises to meet it. They examine the promise. They feel whether the promise fits the shape of their wound. The funnel was always upside down. He simply did not check. That detail aged 500 years without moving an inch. Now look at what the surgeon is pulling out. Not a stone, a flower. And the first time you notice it, it registers as absurdity. A small, strange touch in an already strange scene. The kind of detail that feels like Bosch making an odd, surrealist gesture. Then you think about what it means for the flower to be there. Flowers do not grow inside skulls. But more importantly, flowers can be prepared beforehand. A flower can be hidden in a sleeve, held in a closed fist, produced at precisely the right moment for a watching audience. The flower is not evidence of an extraction, it is a prop, which means the proof was ready before the procedure began, which means the answer existed before the question was asked, which means Lubbock Das did not receive a cure. He received a performance in which he was the audience and the payment simultaneously. And this is where Bosch's dark humor finally turns into something colder. Because the fraud did not need to be invisible to work. It just needed Lubbock Das to need it more than he needed it to be real. And he did. He sat down. He tilted his head back. He let it happen. That is not a medieval story. That is a description of a mechanism. A mechanism with moving parts that have never stopped moving. Every generation inherits the chair. Every generation inherits people who understand that the chair is always occupied when the wound is deep enough and the promise is shaped correctly. The funnel changes, the flower changes, the chair does not. Now look away from the figures in the foreground and look at what is happening behind them. Buildings are burning. Not slowly, not metaphorically. The upper right of the painting shows structures collapsing into flame and smoke beneath a sky that is otherwise clear and ordinary. Nobody in the painting has turned around. The surgery continues. The nun stands. The strange creatures wander. And this may be the most quietly devastating observation Bosch ever made. Not that human beings are deceived. Not that charlatans exist. But that human beings become so absorbed in the small theater of their own private healing, the personal wound, the promised cure, the moment of extraction, that an entire world can begin burning in their peripheral vision without breaking their concentration. The fire is not approaching in Bosch's painting. It is already there. It was already there when they arrived. And it will still be there when they leave, convinced the stone has been removed, carrying their flower home. There is one final thing to look at. Not the surgeon, not the funnel, not the flower or the fire. The giant head. It sits at the center of the composition, a massive disembodied human head half submerged in the landscape, draped in cloth, with figures lounging across its surface and others struggling inside the barrel of dark liquid positioned beside it. At first it reads as the painting's most surreal element. The thing that most obviously marks this image as Bosch, as strange, as safely historical. But one way to understand the giant head is that it is not in the painting at all. It is the painting, the landscape, the surgery, the fire, the creatures, the barrel, all of it may be happening inside a single consciousness. One mind, opened up. One interior world, rendered visible. The hybrid creatures are not wandering through an outdoor scene. They are surfacing. The dark liquid in the barrel is not water. It is what fills a mind that has surrendered its organizing principle. In other words, Bosch may not have painted a surgery. He may have painted what a surgery of the self looks like from the inside, which means the patient watching is not Lubbock Das. The patient is the landscape. The patient is everything you are looking at. And that is when the painting performs its final move. Because we arrived at this image as observers. We placed ourselves safely outside it. We watched Lubbock Das sit down, felt a small, sad amusement, maybe a flicker of recognition that we quickly managed. But Bosch was always waiting for that moment. The moment when the recognition stops being comfortable. Because we all carry something we have decided is a stone. Something wrong, something foreign, something that does not belong inside us, and that we would pay in money, in time, in trust, in the quiet surrender of our own judgment to have removed. The grief we want extracted. The fear we want extracted. The version of ourselves we cannot stand. The part that keeps surfacing no matter what we try. And every generation finds someone who says, I can reach that. I know exactly where it lives. Sit down. Tilt your head back. The flower was already in their hand when they said it. Bosch painted this scene, placed it under clear afternoon light, and then quietly stepped back. He did not accuse anyone. He did not moralize. He simply left the painting open, the way a mirror is open, and waited for whoever walked past to recognize their own posture in the figure sitting in the chair. You came here to watch a disturbing painting become more disturbing the longer you look, and it did. But the disturbance was never inside the canvas. It was the slow, creeping moment of understanding that the painting was not a historical document. It was an open appointment, and the chair was always yours.